Hey everybody, welcome back to Test Don't Guess Tuesday. This is Melissa Hall-Klepacki, your functional gut health expert, and I am here with you each week talking about the GI MAP test. It's the only test I trust for my private clients. I run it when people come with constipation and gut dysbiosis. Remember that it's one of the 8 root causes of constipation. A lot of times we can work on constipation and find the root causes without testing, but in stubborn cases, and if you are listening and you're like, I have tried everything, I have changed my diet, I drink more water, I get exercise, my circadian rhythm is working and great, and I just still can't poop, then we run this test. It's called the GI MAP, and it gives us a ton of information. So this week I want to talk about a case study, a woman, 58 years old, significantly overweight, very inactive, eating a diet of mostly processed foods, right? We start where we are. And what I say to the people that come to me is there's no shame in the game because you didn't know what you didn't know. And my job is to educate. My job is to help you drill down on the root causes of your constipation. And so for her, there were many. And diet and exercise and sleep were all big factors for her. But she wanted to run the gut test. She had heard about the gut test, and that's what brought her to me. So we started with a gut test, and I'm going to share with you today what we found and talk about a little bit more of her symptomatology around some of those findings. And then I'll tell you what we did to help her heal. So stick around. Here we go. Okay, so let's get into her GI MAP test. This is the first page of the GI MAP test. And if you are not familiar with the GI MAP test, there are 3 columns. In the left-hand column is the pathogen we're looking for. In the middle column is the result, your result. And in the right-hand column is the reference range. That is because this is not a yes or no test. It's not simply saying at the very top, Campylobacter, is it there or not? It's telling you, is it there and at what level? Which is important because sometimes when things are at low levels, we keep an eye on them, know that they're there and they're not necessarily in need of treatment. So here on this first page, everything was normal. All of her results were under the detectable limit. Let's move to page 2. Okay, here on page 2, H. pylori at the very top, it's looking for both H. pylori and all the virulence factors of H. pylori. And this case is a positive result. However, it's under the reference range. So that means we take into account when we look at all of the other parts of her test that are out of balance, and we put this in that bucket and we consider whether this needs specific treatment or whether we think by treating other parts of this test, will this disappear? So we're going to keep that in our back pocket, noting that she does have some H. pylori. However, it's not extremely high. The next section of this test talks about the keystone bacteria, or the bacteria that we know need to be in our gut to be operating properly. And so you'll see here, quite a few of those are low in the red and still more in the yellow. And that tells me that this is shaping up to be a case of dysbiosis, of lack, right? There's just not enough good bacteria to get the job done, to carry out all the activities that need to happen in her gut. So that's something else to pay attention to. Akkermansia muciniphila, we know there is a specific supplement by a company called Pendulum that will help to replace that. And when I see people with low fecal bacterium prausnitzii, I always recommend kiwi. A lot of supplements you'll note have kiwi powder, and that's because that's helping to replace fecal bacterium prausnitzii. And for the others, just really good, well-rounded, high-dose probiotics should help to replace these. Under bacteriophila, you'll see both the Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes are low. Those are the types of bacteria, which is to be expected when we see an overall lack of bacteria in the system. We also talk a lot about diet when we see bacteriophila low like this. And in fact, with her diet of mostly processed foods, even remember that a piece of white bread is an extremely processed piece of food. We don't think of it that way. We think of processed foods, things that are frozen, right, in bags and boxes. But even simply having sandwiches every day is eating a ton of processed foods. So there was a lot of nutritional counseling that went into changing her microbiome and having her understand that the fruits and vegetables that we eat not only provide the fiber that we need to have good bowel movements, but provide all the nutrients and the chemicals that make these good bacteria thrive. So while we can put these good bacteria back into her system readily, there's tons of great probiotics on the market, we need to feed them, and we need to feed them daily. And so that's what a lot of what we talked about in her counseling sessions were about. And so making those changes and taking the good probiotics really helps to bring those levels up. Let's take a look further and see what else we can find. Page 3 of the GI map test, you'll note here, I'm surprised that not much is higher. She only had really high staph, and noted that Candida was high. She did suffer from recurrent yeast infections. She did have a sweet tooth and really had no control over that, eating processed sugars every single day. So again, diet counseling was a part of that. Also, this was from my alternative medicine training, but when I see Candida high, I always think, what's the toxin? Candida grows in response to toxins. Candida grows because it is light and fluffy and innocuous and shielding your body from other bacteria and toxins. Sorry about the dogs. So when I do see Candida high, I like to do some kind of heavy metal detox as part of a protocol. So again, not too bad here with overgrowing bacteria. Let's take a look at yet the last page. Let's see.